I find that whenever I listen to one of the parables of Jesus from the New Testament, I try to subject myself to the facial expression test. Remember, parables are stories that Jesus tells that use vivid and even strange imagery that is designed to arrest their hearers. The practical applications of parables also aren't clear all the time. They often are leaving us more disturbing. In other words, at the end of a parable, they rarely produce the facial response of, ah, and far more often, one of the reasons why I love this parable from today's gospel reading is because it almost never fails to produce that second facial expression, especially if we feel that the workers who are hired throughout the day are treated unjustly because they are treated differently. This might make especially a sense to us in an American culture that has a strong sense often of what it means to be just. I think we probably feel injustice more greatly the earlier in the day that we identify with the workers who are hired. Our sense of injustice will be more heightened if we think of ourselves perhaps as workers who are hired at dawn rather than those who are hired at 5 o'clock. And certainly then if we move outside of the world of that story itself into thinking about what the implications are for this story in terms of one's final judgment, that feeling can be even more intense. That those who have borne the heat of the day, who have been in relationship with the Lord their whole lives, might wonder at the Lord's generosity, being able to show such love and kindness to folks perhaps who are hired at the end of the day, so to speak. I think we can take two things away from this parable, though, especially on that level of application to our judgment one day. The first is that none of us is exclusively the worker who's hired at dawn or at dusk or at any time throughout the day in between. In my relationship with God, as it's mediated with other people, through things, through creation, sometimes I am the worker that's hired at dawn, but other times I'm the one hired at dusk, depending upon the relationship that I happen to be thinking of in my life. And so God shows generosity to me, to us, at all times, in all of our relationships. And then second, I think the point of this parable is not so much to fret over whether or not these workers are being treated justly. Who's being given more? Who's being given less than perhaps he deserves? But about God's great generosity. It's all God's gift to give, and God gives it with complete abandon. And the only response to that gift is one of thanksgiving. And that is why we come together to celebrate the Eucharist, a word which means thanksgiving. So as we continue this celebration, let us be people of thanksgiving for God's great generosity. Let us be people who realize that each of us and each of the relationships of our lives are hired at all sorts of different hours during the day. And let's pray that as we continue this prayer together, we be conscious of this and act accordingly.